And good evening. Welcome to tonight's broadcast of the VRS Hero program, and I'm your host, George Pardos. So, we're going to cover some things tonight that I haven't covered in a while, and I think part of it is because I think it needs to be addressed. So, in the last few months, and especially um, in the last, last few years, masculinity has been under attack. And why is this important? Well, I will tell you this. In the veteran community, and not just in the veteran community, but in most communities out there, most men commit suicide at a higher rate than women do. Men are more homeless at a much very higher rate than women are. Men also have um, they wind up being more depressed and everything. And part of the reason is we're not teaching men how to be men, but we're also not teaching masculines how to heal. And part of that problem then carries over into work life, into private life, into physical. I mean, it is, and that is one of the things that we've been, for the last year, we've been trying to help veterans and start a program where we've been reaching out to veterans, and it's going really well. I mean, we've had some roundtables and things of the like. And then in January, what we're going to do, and I'll announce it tonight, but in the first, we're going to have a coffee with coaches. We're having a get together at Matt Brown's gym in January, which we're going to invite other people to come to and hang out with UFC veterans, and also have coffee and just be able to talk. One of the things now, why are we having so many issues with masculinity? I'll tell you why. It's absence of a father. That is one of the things that I've seen, and it is going really, really bad. You take away a male figure, and then you wind up having issues that arise from it. Now, I'll tell you this. I mean, something as simple as shaving, right? If you don't shave right as a man, guess what happens? You get infected. So there are a few times when I was on deployment that we lived off of witch hazel, alcohol, and stuff like that. And so something as simple as being able to get just to be able to shave, you've got to be able to teach that. So why is this becoming an issue now? Well, I think part of the thing is there's a stigma in the male community, and it is like, oh, you're such a girl. That if boys don't cry. Why? Why don't they? Why don't they cry? I mean, what law says that you're not allowed to go out and cry? What law is there that says a man or if masculine isn't allowed to go out there and cry? Guess what else we do? I don't know if this is true or not, but our model of dealing with trauma hasn't changed in a lot of years. So we either medicate it or we drink it. So, you ever watch, I'm going to give you props to this. Now, I'm not very happy that it shows this, but back in there's a show that came out called Mad Men with, Don Draper and, Sterling, that show. If you look at it, they replicated a lot of the things that people did in that area. They had cocktail lunches. So you do, they would have these whiskey gimlets, vodka gimlet, maybe, they would go to lunch. They had, it was not uncommon to go into a businessman's office and then have you'd have a wet bar. You'd have a, whiskey, decanter of whiskey, maybe some gin. And that's how they dealt with it. So today, what that's happened into our psyche in the social fabric has been that we have not helped men get better. we don't talk about immersion therapy. We don't talk about cognitive behavior therapy the way it is. If you take a look at two of the people, Anthony Bourdain and Robin Williams, which their deaths, affected me. I've met both of them. I met Anthony Bourdain, and I thought he was an exceptional human being, the absolute last person on this planet that I would have thought was going to go commit suicide. I mean, if you ever take a look at his resume, I mean, a Michelin, Michelin chef, worldwide. I mean, the guy just had a lifestyle that all of us would love to have, but yet he committed suicide. Why? Because there was something there that was wrong with him. Did he get help? Did he look? I don't know. Robin Williams. Robin Williams, was one of my favorite actors, and as a death that affected me, that was one of them because he was funny, charming. And there's a story about him that when he was in that he does movies, he would go hire homeless people, make sure that they had roles. I mean, the stuff that he did was, of legend. And he committed suicide. And so you look at that, and then we have in the veteran community, we have veterans, some high-speed guys taking their lives. Why? Because we've made it a stigma to go get help. And so what we have is these wounded men walking around without getting help, without, saying, "Hey, listen, I'm broken. I need to be fixed." And so, this last year I've undergone therapy. I've had to go to, some things have, come out that I didn't want to deal with, and I put them underneath the, whatever, swept them under the rug. But as a result of that, and as a result of it, thank you, Jose. I appreciate but as a result of it, I've gotten better. I've dealt with situations better. I've gotten, and this is one of the reasons why, starting in this next month, why why we're doing. For those of you that follow the station, we're making an announcement in the next couple of weeks. We're signing with UpHealth, and one of the things is we're introducing equine therapy, and we're going to start that program in the new year. But along with it, there's a wellness thing to it. And the reason I'm covering this is that we don't tell other men, especially veterans, that it's okay to go get help. Our generation, we absolutely dropped the ball on it. We, stiff upper lip, or quit acting like a little bitch. I mean, and that's the shit that we would tell to each other. And I was like, and as a result, that echoed and went through the social fabric. And now, so, what happens as a result of, wounded masculines? What do? They go shoot up a school. You're in a school, you're in a setting, and you're a kid, and you're frustrated. You have no way of releasing some of the anger because you're either getting picked on, or you're the bully or whatever. So what do? You go take a gun, you go to the school, you shoot it up, and then that's the only way of the release. It's the same thing with fights. We used to take out fights against each other. So we had this place in the west side of Columbus. I went to a school called Westland High School. I don't know I can't describe the school. It's just it was a public school. 1,600 kids. When my graduating class was 395. But it wasn't a very, it was a typical, middle America school. If you had a problem with somebody, you went out and you fought, you got in a fight behind Frank's, threw some punches, and then you were done. But one of the things that has happened with that is that instead of saying, "Hey, that's part of normal, growing up. That's part of, I don't want people to get into fights all the time, because you do stand the chance of getting hurt, but you release some of that anger, and then you're able to then take that out and go and do whatever you're doing." Well, the problem with that is that now that you have guys that are not they don't have any releases, then what they do is that when something angers them or something gets them mad, then they were you know when something gets them mad, they have no release. So what do? They beat up their wives. I mean, wounded masculines. There's a lot of them are, that you have a lot of I don't know what you want to call it, domestic violence. Because they're wounded, so they take out the aggressions on their women. You have a lot of them return to pharmacology, whether it's they start whether it's Quaalude. I'm sorry, I'm dating myself. I apologize. They start taking pharmaceuticals. They start getting high, which I have no problem with medical marijuana, but they release one toxic behavior for another. But there's a difference between using marijuana for to make you feel better and then just using it as a crutch, or they drink themselves out of and yeah, I mean, Michael, that happens too. I mean, that's a fine point. There's a lot, but that's part of the masculinity. Oh my God, you're eating beef, you're eating meat. Oh my God, you're killing the planet. And again, that we have identified behaviors that were normal for millions, let's say thousands and thousands of years, and now it's all of a sudden it's toxic. And it works on both sides. There's a lot of toxic feminists out there too, because and as a result of it, that toxicity carries over. But here's what we've done in the male community. When somebody asks for help, we turn a deaf ear. Say, hey, listen, you need to go talk to somebody. There's nothing wrong with talk. Oh, only women talk about their feelings. Fuck you. Seriously? You would say that to another, and that's one of the problems that you have. And we say to each other in groups that, hey, listen, you need to go. Do you need somebody to talk to? You need somebody, and then we stigmatize that on top of it, and then what are the other problems that they do? Here's one of the other things that are toxic in relationships. They carry that over, and you look at most. This is going to be hard to understand for some people, but I'm going to try to put it the best way I can. If guys carry that toxicity over into a relationship, here's one of the things they do: they cheat. They wind up having numerous affairs. Why? Because they need validation, and then they turn having instead of working at the relationship at home, they turn to multiple. They need the validation, and here's the thing, and I don't have the time to feed two women. I don't, or to disappoint two women at the same time. The amount of energy it takes, but guys are out there doing this because they need validation. They need to say to somebody, hey, listen, I need to get validated. I need so they wind up having a side piece. They have a girlfriend, they have affairs, and so on. And I'm going to say something to you that this, these are real numbers. If you have an affair, and this is part of Toxic Masculinity 101, if you're a dumbass and you leave your wife to go have an affair with somebody, the chances of it working out is about 15%, maybe lower. It's got a very low success rate. So if you leave your wife to go have an affair, it's the success rates are about 15%. So 85% of them are going to they're going to fail. If you have and then we don't look at red flags. So for example, if you have multiple marriages, if you go to your fourth marriage, the chances of that working out are 11%. They don't work out very well. Why? Because you did not do the work. You didn't do the work to get better. So, here's one of the things that happens all the time. You take a look at people that, boo, listen to me. You can't find 4 queens in 1 year. You can't. You can't be in a relationship with 4 different women in the same year and say, "This is my queen." Come on, bro. It doesn't work like that. But what do? They jump, guys jump from relationship to relationship to relationship because instead of working on the relationship they're in, they drop it off and then go to the next one because it's easier for them to do so. Nowhere in the history of relationships has that worked. Plus, and also if you're getting married every few years, or getting divorced every couple years, do you want to just go find somebody and give away half your stuff to somebody you hate and visit it once a month or twice a month? But that's what we carry over. Why? Because you're not and Marie Jeanette, I'm going to say this. This is a valid. They won't get a therapist, and they can't talk to most other men, so they reach out to other women, right? And so what do? They jump into these, and they wind up having these, affairs or whatever because they're wounded, and so you can't have another person be your drug. You can't, if you're not healthy in by yourself and you jump into another relationship, that person isn't going to be your drug. They're not going to be able to fix it. Um, Jeff, where's the line to be drawn on years trying everything and working before? Jeff, that's a good question. If you can expand on that a little bit, I'd be happy to try to try to answer that a little bit. There's got to be, there's also a time that you have to walk away and give up. I mean, there really is. But but the problem is if if you're sitting there having honest conversations with people, honest conversations have never hurt anybody, at all. So what do they do? So what do people do? Instead of addressing the issue, they put it aside, and they use if only, if only this person, if only that person, or, that person is going to be my next, and if you take a look, people with, toxic behavior, and follow into the same patterns, and wounded masculines follow into the same pattern. You don't want to be around them. You don't want to go to you go to a restaurant, and they're, the guys that are rude to waiters, or they go you go to a, you go to a bar and they're first ones to start a fight, or, they do that. And part of that is because they need validation, or, the guys that are, I call them the Ben brothers. So when I was, we used to make fun of these guys all the time. We call them the Ben brothers, the could have been, should have been, would have been. Right. And I'll tell you a story, and it's, not that this shows me that how some people think. I lost a match one time to Kozlowski, in Greco. Kozlowski was a 1988 bronze medalist, 92 silver medalist, and he beat Hector Milian from Cuba, beat him in the finals. Hector is literally one of the 5 strongest men I've ever wrestled. Lost a match to Kozlowski. It was 3-1 match. I was never in the match, not even close. He was up 2-0. Was controlling the match, and I'm a thrower. So for the last 45, it's about 50 seconds left. I went to do a throw, didn't land it, scored a point, and he was like, okay, I had 2-1, it's too close. He scored a quick duck under, 3-1, 30 seconds left, wrote out the match. I mean, it was like with a minute, we scored, but I was talking to a guy. We're sitting there talking about this to a guy, and he said something, and he's like, 3-1. Did the ref screw you? No, the guy was just better. Couldn't take him down. I mean, the guy was strong as he was. He had a low center ground. But these are the guys that you run into at the bar, and they go, "Oh yeah, I was a great. I was this guy in high school. The glory days of Bruce Springsteen, he sings about him. Well, those are the typical kind of wounded masculines that they've never accomplished anything after they left high school. Or, they go and talk about, things that they did in the Marine Corps or, in the Army or the Navy. It doesn't matter whatever service they did, as it was yesterday. Well, bro, if you, I haven't, I listen, I am one of the proudest days of my life. And one of the proudest, not the most proudest, but was I earned the title Marine. Yeah, it was a great day. Remember it? Yes, it was wonderful. The best 2 days of my life, though, of anything I've ever experienced in life, was June 4th, 1993. That was the year my daughter was born. And July 14th, 2006, when my son was born. Those are 2 proudest days because I was there for both of them and I held them when they were being born. What I did, and wrestling wise or anything, it's great, but it pales in comparison to that. The point of it is that as you get older, yeah, you're going to carry some trauma with you, and it's going to add up bit by bit. It's like building a brick wall. Well, what you have to do then is, at the end of the day, is understand that all of us are hurt, all of us are broken, we all have issues. What we need to do, though, is to address them and say, hey, listen, just maybe, we need to fix it before we can go on, or we need to fix it because it's causing other issues in life. There's people out there. They're one of the things that wounded masculines carry is the fear of success. Now, you think about that for a second, right? That you have people out there that are afraid to be successful. And I've seen that before. They're like, oh, well, you know what? If I start making all this money, my friends are going to go, they're not going to talk to me. They're not going to do this. Or, I'm like, what are you thinking, dude? And here's one of the things that also carries over with, because you don't have good friends and good friendships, you will literally make as much money as your 5 closest friends. You're going to make what they make. It's a proven principle. That's why millionaires hang out with millionaires, billionaires hang out with billionaires, because of that. So if you're wounded, part of it is going to say to you, I don't deserve that. Why the hell not? Why don't you deserve it? Why shouldn't you be a millionaire? Why shouldn't you have all the money that you want and then some? But because we've been beat up and we've been conditioned that we don't deserve it because we don't feel loved, and that happens. That's one of the problems that happens with the wounded masculines, is that they get beat up and they don't feel like they deserve happiness. They don't feel like they deserve love, success, money, all sorts of things. And you look at them and you're going, why? Well, it's because they let the external pressures dictate their internal mechanisms. And it's hard. Listen, there's a quote that's going around. It says, no one's here to help you. You got to be your own hero. No one's going to show up. There are sometimes you have to be your own hero. There's sometimes you have to be your own. You've got to be your own hero. You've got to be your own savior. You've got to save yourselves from drowning. You've got to do those things which other people will not, because if not, who else is going to show up for you? I mean, it's going to be very difficult. And the problem with it is that we don't do those things which help. So how do you get better? Which is the most important thing that I want to cover right now. I want to close with. The way you get better is you address the problems that you're having. And you've got to be honest with yourself first. You got to take you've got to take a self-reflection, look in the mirror and do a self-inventory. If you don't like I said, if you don't have goals, I can tell you how much is in your checking account. If you don't have, one of the things that I did yesterday, because I've gotten really upset, because of a couple things I've been working on. I wrote myself a check for my company yesterday. And that check I'm going to cash in 4 years. And it's an amount which is important to me. I'm going to cash that check, and I'm retiring. That's with the goal that I made. But do you have a goal like that? If not, why not? Number two, if you're having an issue, first of all, what I would recommend to you first is go see a counselor. If you're a veteran, the VA has some really good programs out there. Hey, Michelle, the VA has some really good programs. You can reach us here at VRS. We're always available to lend an ear. You can, there are plenty of counselings. If you need one, get a life coach. If you need one, go and get a life coach. But the first thing is you can talk out your problems, because one of the things that people think, and this is where it's scary for anybody, people think that their problem is unique. Look, man, everybody's gone through the same thing. They've gone through divorces. You think you're the only person that's ever gone through a divorce or a breakup, or had you've been on a 7-month deployment. Your girl is 4 months pregnant. You think you're the only person in the history of the world that's happened to? Come on. No, that's happened to a lot of people. You think you're the only person that has been broke? One of my favorite stories is about J.C. Penney. Now, if you ever followed him, he is one of the most. His life story is something else. But J.C. Penney, when he was around 60 years old, they put him. He was $2 million in debt. He was in debt, and they put him in a mental hospital, sanatorium, what they used to call it back then. He died. He died at age 92 in his right mind, with over $2 billion in assets. So it's never too late. Leonidas was 58 or 59, depending on how you look at it. He was 58 or 59 years old when he fought at Thermopylae. So it's never too late, to do what you set out to do. And one of the things that I say to people is most men live lives of quiet desperation. Why? Because they're afraid, because they're wounded. And what they do is that they're afraid to take a risk. They're afraid to tell their feelings. They're afraid to wind up, they're afraid to tell people, hey, listen, this is how I feel about this. They're afraid of a lot of things. As a result of those issues, they get hurt, and they carry that with them. They carry that. You take a look at a guy. It's like Eeyore. Oh, how's your day, Eeyore? That's on that's on Winnie the Pooh, by the way. But they carry that with them. It's the guy that is like all the time. He's like horrible. He's like, how you doing, man? Oh man, ran over the tractor, ran over my foot, and it, whatever. I mean, it just, they have a horror, everything, every time you talk to them, they have something horrible to say. Why? Because they haven't healed from what hurt them, and hurt people. But if you don't heal what hurts you, you're going to bleed over people that haven't. And I think that's one of the things that we want to, one of the things that we're going to work on next year. We're going to have, we're going to start in January. Like I said, we're going to start having coffee hours, coffee with coaches. And we're going to bring athletic coaches in. We're going to bring some veterans in. RPG Coffee is going to sponsor some the events. And we're going to sit down and talk about some of the stuff that normally isn't covered, because we want you to be in a comfortable setting. A lot of times, a lot of the problems that happens is that A lot of the stuff that goes on, you could mitigate the problem if you start on it early, but we don't solve it. We don't address it, and it's very difficult. And that's why I said, if you're having issues, reach out to a counselor first. Trust me when I say this, it's going to help tremendously. They will give you techniques on how to deal with them. Number two, um, they people have gone through what you've gone through before. They will help you fix some of the things behind it. They will. Number three, um, address, look in the mirror, take personal stock of where you're at. What hurts, what doesn't hurt. What are you happy with? Are you happy with your lifestyle? Are you happy with where you're at in life? If you are, that's funny. I mean, that's great. I mean, that's fine. If you're not, then make some changes to live your life better. If you're not where you're at financially, okay, how do you clean up your financial picture? You talk to a financial advisor. But all of these wounds that we're going to carry with us, if we don't fix them, somebody's going to break them and they're going to become worse. I'm going to close with the story, and this is kind of personal to me, but I want to, but this is one of those things that I've had to address in counseling this year. In 2006, my mother was murdered, and even though I did not have a great relationship with her, I grew up with my dad. My mom was in Greece. It really affected me. I should have went to a grief counselor. And I did not. I did not. I just didn't. I didn't. I thought I could handle it by myself. I was like, hey, I'm a Marine. I'm a wrestler. Did this, and then come to find out, nope, the fuck you can't. And it's caused me issues since then. Didn't find out until I went to counseling why. And my counselor said, this is the reason why why this caused you issues, because of this and this, and this is what you did about it. And I was like, wow. And I just didn't know. And I will say this, the people that know me, I have one of the strongest constitutions that you will ever meet. I'm pretty accomplished. And even I had needed to get help. And what you're saying to the world is this, that if you're broken listen, you go get maintenance on your car, you go get maintenance on your house, you get maintenance on your refrigerator, your washing machine, your stove, you clean. Why wouldn't you get maintenance on the most important thing you own, which is you and your headspace? And that is the one thing that we've had conversations with over and over again. Take care of your, it's like being on an airplane. If you are on an airplane and the oxygen masks drop down first, you put one over you first, then you help other people. It's the same thing in life. If you don't help yourself first, you can't help the other people that you love, your family, your friends. You can't help any of them if you're broken first. So with that being said, that's our show for tonight. I hope that this helped out. I hope that you guys learned something from it. And we were going to do more of these in the future, but look forward to having us try to do some things to help you, because what we've seen over and over again, especially especially in the military and the veteran community, is that we are not doing a very good job of helping each other to address the issues. We can, look, we can do all sorts of things. We could bringing awareness to suicide is great, but how are you fixing that? Bringing awareness to a lot of the issues is great, but how do you fix it? Well, you need therapy. You need to talk to counselors. You need to be able to go out and share your feelings, and you need techniques. The first thing is that sometimes that you have to understand that you're broken. Okay. And you might have, abandonment issues, attachment issues. If you are, let's say, give you the worst case scenario. You're gonna, if you got on deployment, your wife left you, which I know, listen, I know that never happens. I know it never happens. No wife ever leaves, somebody that's deployed, or no. But in case it does, you might wind up having some attachment issues. You might have abandonment issues. If you didn't have a good home growing up and you were thrown around over and over again, you might have, like I said, that might cause abandonment issues. If you had a parent that was, um, that was abusive, then you might have gathered some traits that will, that you're taking with you. And I'll give you an example. And this is a very complex issue, but there's a lot of times as this comes out that how'd I put this? There's a lot. My generation grew up with parents, dads, especially spanking their kids. It just happened. It is what it is. I mean, that generation. I grew up, my dad spanked me. But the issue with that has been is that sometimes one of the reasons why we say that it's not always good to be, to spank kids, is because it creates, an abuse pattern, because it goes from spanking, then it becomes, you're beating the shit out of him with a belt, and it's very, that's just not good. So I say that, you've got to, and you're used to getting beat up when you're doing something wrong, and that creates issues. And again, like I said, this isn't easy for people. I've covered this tonight, and I don't, well, my dad used a belt on me. That, every Greek dad did. But what it does is it can sometimes, that abuse, and I understand there's a difference between getting spanked, but people defend saying, I got spanked and I turned out just fine. Did you? And I'm not saying that to be me. I've never, well, I haven't said that. I very rarely have ever had to spank my kids. Why? Because I just, I didn't need to. But but I'm saying is that if you got spanked as a kid, did you turn out fine? Do you have those issues that carried over from it? And what are some of the things that has happened from it? Are you, collectively, are you okay because you got spanked? Now, there's a lot of different, differentiating arguments that, well, spanking doesn't hurt kid. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of kids that turned out fine with spanking, and other kids, that got spanked and are, that are having a hard time dealing with those things. So, and number two, the final part is that if you are hurt, do you pass that trauma down to your kids? Because you don't know how to fix it. If you didn't feel loved, do you know how to love your kids in a manner that shows them that they're safe and secure? I mean, and that's a tough question that we don't address. And again, if we as men don't address this, if we don't tell our sons, say, hey, listen, you have, this is how you do things, because this is what we expect from you. We expect from you, and as a result of this, there's a lot of things that go on in our society today that cause this. I read about my book is coming out. It's called The Book of Men, and how male role models influence our lives. But a lot of the things that I've been happy with is the fact that the men that I've crossed paths with have been very, very influential. Not all of them have been perfect, but they've been very influential. Well, if you don't have good male leadership, and you don't know what that looks like, you're in for a tough road. From little things, I talk about, the one thing I talked about, man law violations. We did a show about a week ago about man law violations, stuff that you don't do. Well, if nobody has taught that to you, how do you know to do it better? The things the things that you do that you shouldn't be able to do. Well, if you don't know that, well, how do if you don't know that this is wrong, why would you do that? Well, because like from everything from you look a man in the eye when you shake his hand, what that tells you is like, I'm not afraid of you. I respect you. I'm not afraid of you. Those little things like that are important, and so, like I said, with that is that in order to be, if you don't learn those things that hurt you, if you don't know what your wounds are, you're never going to get better. And that is the God's honest truth. Anyway, thank you for listening to VRS. Thank you for I hope today, if you guys are, if I hope this helped. I hope you guys learned something that I hope that you guys learned something from this, and I hope that in the future that like I said, we could help people. Good night, and thank you again for supporting Veteran Radio Syndicate.
The recognized symbol of excellence in online entertainment.